Apologies in advance for the poor audio quality of my side of the call during our introduction to this episode. Apparently, we were having some microphone issues that weren't caught until after recording. I've done my best to clean it up. Hopefully it won't deter from the experience, and the rest of the show after the introduction should sound just fine.
Welcome back to The Short Game. This is the show where we discuss fitting games into your life, games in all its forms. This is actually episode 9B, a follow-up and continuation of our board game special. But because we love you so much, we wanted to come back and do an intro that we would kind of catch up on how things were going. Make this a little more interesting than just the last little bit of the board game special. I'm joined this week by my brother Shane. How are you doing, Shane?
I'm doing great. I just had a beautiful day. I got to see a movie with my dad, since we're recording this on Father's Day. For all you fathers out there.
Yeah, actually, that's an interesting factor. This will probably be the first time that we are recording something for the show within only a couple of days of it hitting your pod catchers. So we can actually say something mildly topical on this episode, and it will make sense to you, the listener.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good stuff out there for Father's Day. It sent me and my dad to the theater. But for those of you who watch Game of Thrones, would have also caught the Game of Thrones finale today.
Oh, this is the perfect opportunity for you to spoil it for everyone.
Do my best and not spoil anything for any of you.
You're a better man than I.
Although I'm not the kind of guy that really hates spoilers. I don't mind seeing spoilers. Maybe we'll talk about that one day.
Yeah, we've kind of discussed that. I love spoilers for the most part.
I wish there was a better name for them than spoiler.
I know, it sounds sounds like such a bummer. I think plot precognition.
Plot Kodak moments.
No. Well, so because this is coming to you on Father's Day 2014, we're not very long past E3, and it's been a really, really exciting E3, actually. We don't really do gaming news and the hot news on this show, but I know I've been keeping an eye on E3 pretty closely. Shane, anything stand out to you at this year's E3?
Well, I have been trying to keep up with everything that's going on at E3, and I will say, just aside from all the great news out there, a couple of things have been really making me excited. One is just the degree to which Nintendo seems like they really want to sell me a Wii.
They really do.
A Wii U. That's the yeah. Okay, I ought not. Can we cut me Wii Uing 5 times?
Go for it.
All right. Wii. It's a few years on, and now I can still barely say
Wii U, Wii U, Wii U.
Yeah. But definitely. The other thing that really has been keeping my attention has been this video I watched earlier, No Man's Sky. Now, when I told you I was really excited about this, you said, gosh, that sounds like Minecraft in space. And that might be, if it is kind of going to include a lot of survival elements, that sounds good. But when I saw this video of this first-person character climbing out of a cave, walking past some robots, walking past some dinosaurs. Can I not tell the difference between robots and dinosaurs?
Hey, it's a good confusion to have. It's exciting on both sides.
Yeah, but getting into the spaceship and then flying off, it reminded me of and all the neon kooky colors that they've got going on. It just seems like such a visually awesome rendition of a game. And I do think it's tricky to recommend a game that's going to be procedurally generated. But just if you can do this kind of visuals and then promise something fresh every time, I would sign up for that.
I think it's a Sony exclusive, isn't it?
I don't know.
I think it's going to be a PS4 exclusive, which if it's as good as you're hoping, which I don't know, but it might be. It looks pretty cool. Might be worth picking up a PS4.
It's gonna be down to the gameplay, because that's the kind of thing. If it is a sandbox game, like it looks like it's going to be, you've got to be delivering an experience that really gets people excited. And these visuals really get me excited. And the idea of a kind of a planet hopping adventure is always something that I can get behind, especially when it seems like the kind of thing that seamlessly blends so well from the planetary scale to the running around on a beach and dodging dinosaurs.
Yeah, the video looks pretty stunning. This has been an interesting E3. It was all about games this year. There was nothing on E3 about hardware. I mean, Sony did debut the PlayStation TV, but essentially that's just the same as the PlayStation Vita TV or whatever it was called when they released it in Asia. There's really no new hardware out there this E3, but this E3 there were a zillion games. It was too much to keep track of. I know the things that really stood out to me. Nintendo with their new game Splatoon looks really cool. Shane, did you see a video of Splatoon?
I did watch the video for Splatoon, and I gotta say, I'm not really that interested.
Really?
That's a game where...
Shane, cute squid girls shooting ink guns. What's wrong with you?
I don't know. Maybe I'm just a little dead inside or something, but
it looks super
fun.
While
I can get behind the idea of crazy dinosaurs chasing me, I guess I can't get behind the idea of being a cute squid ink girl and doing versus combat. Seems very strange.
Well, I think it shows that Nintendo is trying new things. It's not... game could so easily have been like Mario Paintball or something, but it's not. It's a new game. It's a new IP. It's Nintendo trying something new. I am really excited to see that happening. I've had a real wait and see perspective on this entire new generation of consoles. We're at a stage right now where essentially everything good that has come out on the new consoles was already or is coming out on PC. And so as a PC gamer, I had the luxury of kind of like standing back with my arms crossed and, chuckling to myself and saying,
yeah, definitely.
That's cool. I don't need to buy one of those peasant boxes.
Oh, wow. We're all so cool up here in our ivory towers with our GPUs.
But I will say that Nintendo did a great job this year of making a new case for their hardware. Their hardware isn't great, but it has Nintendo's backing behind it, and Nintendo is not slowing down. They are continuing to make awesome stuff. They had that new video of the new Zelda game. Looks extraordinary. I mean,
yeah.
The proposition, very, very simple. They give you a 1-minute video that says, basically, it's Zelda, but it's an open world game. And they really frame that as Zelda going back to Zelda's roots. Zelda was perhaps the earliest open world game. The very first Zelda game, essentially, you could pretty much walk anywhere you wanted in the world from moment one. You'd probably get your ass handed to you at certain parts, but it was essentially an open world game, and they're kind of returning to that. And I think that's really exciting, and the visuals of it looked great. It looked like the best looking Zelda game yet, and I liked the art style. I think it sounds fantastic. So
that is exactly what got me really amped up about the Wii U coming up. And for me, no matter what consoles I've had, and I would be willing to do, I was never super smart about what consoles I bought. I felt like you and I got to talking about getting stuck as Sega kids during the age where all we wanted to do was play Mario.
Yeah.
Then it got to be such a much more complex question. But these days, the only person that will sell me a console based on the strength of their first-party intellectual property is Nintendo, for sure, because everything else I'll probably be able to play on something else eventually.
It's going to be the year of Nintendo. I'm excited about it. The other thing that really, really got me excited this E3 is The Witcher 3. Now, I know that this is the short game, and we talk about short games that you can fit into your schedule.
That is not a short game. Disqualified.
Disqualified.
I could not fit The Witcher 2 into my schedule.
The Witcher 2 was perhaps my favorite role-playing game I've ever played, and I can't be more excited about The Witcher 3. It
was a great game. I returned to it and play it for an hour once every month or so, just to keep myself good.
Yeah.
So I don't lose all my skills, but I haven't been able to
cool.
get through it.
So E3 was pretty cool, but what else is new? What have you been up to?
Well, I said I went off to that movie.
Oh, right.
That was fabulous.
The Edge of Tomorrow. Yeah. Tell me about it.
Yeah, it's a killer movie, and I think it would be interesting for any of our audience members, anybody who loves video games, because I feel like this was the ultimate video game movie. It was like the perfect video game to movie adaptation that was never originally a video game.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that this character of Tom Cruise's gets thrown into... He's a coward, and he gets thrown into battle with these aliens that are invading the Earth. And he finds, the premise is that he is Groundhog Day-like. If he dies, he resets to the beginning of the day. So he has to keep dying again and again and again. And his character becomes the kind of amazing alien-killing badass that we all expect Tom Cruise to be, eventually. But he wasn't that at the beginning of the movie, and it's just through the repetition that he manages to figure this out. And there's all these concepts that are part of the movie that are things we've seen before, like, it's definitely Groundhog Day meets Independence Day. If you took all the great elements from those two movies and put them together, you could have this movie easily. But this movie was so well done that I give it 100% recommendation. So glad I went out to see it.
I can't wait to see that in theaters. That's one of the few movies that I think Tom Cruise actually kind of gets a bad rap. I mean, maybe not everything about him is appealing, but you know what? He has never made a movie that I really hated.
No, he's a great movie. He's a great movie star.
He's a great movie star. And sometimes he's a really great actor. I mean, you look at something like Rain Man, it's like he made that movie. He made a movie about a guy who had a hard time getting along with his autistic brother. And he made that a top movie. It was the top movie of 1992 or whenever it came out.
Pop Culture Happy Hour had a really good episode on this that you should just go and listen to if you're interested in that movie. Tune into NPR's Pop Culture Happy Hour, because
that's a good show.
They did an episode on it this week that was what really convinced me to go and see it. And I'm so glad I did. It's great to see a new, just like you were saying, Nintendo is doing a great thing, putting out new IP. Well, what summer blockbuster this year is not a sequel to something?
Yeah, or a remake of a television show, or based on a comic book. That's a good point.
Go see it.
Well, keeping things moving, I know that we've got our part 2 of our board game special that we're leading into here, and I want to make sure we get right to that and don't keep this intro segment too super long. But as this is a video game show, I was hoping we could both chit-chat a little bit about a short game, a great short game that we've both played and enjoyed. And this week, that's Luftrausers.
Oh, yeah. Luftrausers is definitely an unusual game, and I think its style is what drew me in initially. It's just a very simple game.
It's really interesting looking. To kind of set it up for those of you who may not have heard of it, Luftrausers is a arcade-style game with graphics that resemble, to my eye, they resemble the color palette of the Game Boy Color. You know, it's got like 2 to 4 colors on screen at a time. They're a little dull and dusty looking.
No, it's to me it's more like the original Game Boy, because it's not that, like the Game Boy Color, the color palette shifts. Oh no, it's a 2-color game, and those 2 colors are beige and red.
Well, you haven't unlocked the additional color palettes yet.
Oh no, I didn't know that there was multiple color palettes.
Oh yeah. It's a game where you're flying a Luftrauser, which in the world of the game, and actually the world of the game is a strange mashup. I'm not exactly sure how to describe it, but you're playing.
I'm not sure how much world there was around this game.
Yeah, there's not a lot.
Except that I appear to be a Nazi.
Yeah.
Who flies a bizarre aircraft. That made me initially uncomfortable with this game, to realize that this was a game in which I was going to be cast as many Nazis as I've killed in video games. I booted this up, and suddenly, now I'm some kind of Nazi air ace. Except there's no real swastikas.
You're not actually a Nazi.
You look just like a Nazi. Okay.
The developers of the game have said that this is a game about a country, or the Air Force of a country that is inspired by Germany, among other things. It's not really. In fact, there was a small controversy about that, and yeah, they're kind of Nazis, but it doesn't really have a bearing on the game.
No, it has nothing to do with it. It's not like I'm a Nazi war criminal or something. I'm just a extremely oddly outfitted.
You're piloting a bizarre aircraft.
Fighter pilot, yeah.
Yeah. It's a great two-dimensional game, and you're piloting a Luftrauser, which is a special sort of submersible fighter plane. You're piloting this in 2 dimensions in an arcade style, and your Luftrauser is customizable with 3 main parts. You can customize its body, its engine, and its weapon, its gun. And you get to unlock a series of different combinations, and you can mix and match these as you play through the game. And actually, that's sort of the best element of the game, in my opinion, is that you get to constantly experiment with different parts. There's no truly optimal configuration. None of these is better than any other. You can fit the configuration of your Luftrauser to your play style and also to the goal that you're trying to achieve. It's a typical sort of arcade style game. You're going for high scores, but like some other games that you might have played in this kind of arcade style genre, each time you play, there's a number of challenge goals that you can meet. Mm-hmm. And the challenge goals are really where the game gets its variety, because each time you might have a different set of challenge goals that you could try for. Things like kill 3 battleships, or take down an air ace, or different combinations of goals. And sometimes you'll find different configurations of your Luftrauser will assist you in getting those high scores or taking down those goals more quickly. And as you do those goals, that's how you unlock new parts for your Luftrauser.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there are certain configurations that, generally weren't terribly useful at all. Like, one that allows you to detonate your Luftrauser with an atomic blast, killing yourself and everything around you.
Not super useful generally, but it's super useful when you have a challenge goal like kill a Zeppelin.
Yeah, or kill 15 things in 1 second.
Yeah. So there's also really great configurations like a melee body where you can fly through other ships without taking damage.
You can turn your aircraft into a submarine that can dive under the waves without being harmed.
Mm-hmm. Or there's a gungeon, the gun engine, where your ship is propelled by bullets that fire out the back end. Great stuff like that.
Pretty outlandish stuff, but it's all so very simply rendered that nothing really stands out about your gungeon-equipped submersible aircraft that's darting through the waves and stabbing battleships in their bellies.
This is a game that is great for quick pick up and play, which is why I think it's so strange that the platforms that they've chosen, only one of them is a mobile platform. This game is out on the Vita, as well as the PS3, and on Linux, Windows, and Mac OS X. This game really feels like it would be right at home on any portable system, because it's something where each individual play is maybe 2 to 5 minutes, maybe 10 if you were just like amazingly kicking ass. But it's a short, quick fix of a game in a kind of an arcade style. I found myself really liking to kind of dive into this game. If I'm playing some other game and I decide I'm fed up and I'm sick of it for a moment, I'll go and dive into Luftrausers for a few minutes and shoot down some planes, maybe take on a new challenge goal, and play it for maybe 15 minutes at the most, and then go back to something else. It's been a really great palate cleanser in between other games.
What do you know about the development of this game? Because I'm seeing that it was made by the same people that made Ridiculous Fishing. Am I right about that?
Yeah, the developer is Vlambeer. Vlambeer is kind of interesting. They've developed a few games, but
Ridiculous Fishing, I did get a chance to play, and if you have an iPhone and you're looking for a game that will just sort of scratch an arcadey itch, that's a game that will do the same thing for you, I think.
Yeah.
And it's also has a similarly out there premise. In this one, I'm some kind of bizarre air ace piloting a Luft thingy, and in Ridiculous Fishing, I'm a crazy fisherman with a shotgun who likes to shoot things out of the air. I don't know. But they're both games that are visually really cool and are just a satisfying quick play, but with depth.
Interestingly, these are both games. Vlambeer has had a really consistent problem with game cloners. We actually talked a little bit about game clones on an upcoming episode and sort of the moral ground that they fall into. Kind of a odd thing, but Vlambeer, when they put out Ridiculous Fishing, had a clone beat their game to market, and it was a big deal in gaming at the time. It really raised a lot of conversation about people cloning game concepts and what that means, and they really wrote some really great stuff about it. They were really a fantastic developer as far as kind of sharing their thoughts about game development and the industry in general. And for some reason, these poor guys have really had this problem consistently. There was another similar clone of this game before it came out. I guess the cloners really have their sights set on these simple games that Vlambeer is putting out. Vlambeer, by the way, stands for Flame Bear, and their logo is a bear on fire.
Awesome.
They're awesome. Anyway, the game is awesome. It has this great look of a 90s game, but it has the great feel of a modern game because the physics and the gameplay are really tight and fast, and it's really just a joy to play. One quick tip. If you are trying to kill a blimp, which only appears at certain points in the game, you may not realize this. There's no text in the game that explains this to you. It's really hard to discover. There's a lot of goals in the game about killing a blimp, and the blimp only appears if you kill 2 battleships. I don't know how you're supposed to discover this. I discovered it from reading that on the internet. Drove me crazy.
I know. I'm so glad to hear that because I could not find this blimp. I was like looking at all these different things and thinking, which among these, poorly rendered, well, no, they're beautifully rendered, but they're very simply rendered items is a blimp. I was trying to guess which is the blimp.
You know the blimp when you see it. It is enormous. But you only find it when you've killed 2 battleships. It only arrives after you've killed 2 battleships in a row. And that is apparent nowhere in the game. So there you go. Tip for you. It's only $10. You can get this game on Steam for Linux, Windows, or OS X. It's also on the Humble store where it routinely goes on sale. So you can take a look on there. It's also on the PS3 and Vita, as we described earlier, and if you do buy it there, it's cross-buy, so you can buy it for the PS3 and also play it on your Vita or vice versa. So that's a pretty good value if you've got one or the other of those systems. I think probably the ideal place to play this game would be on the Vita, because like I said, I think it's really a game that would stand out as a great mobile game, something you could whip out and play at the drop of a hat. It's really a great sort of quick game to jump into and then finish. And I keep returning back to it again and again and again when I get bored or frustrated with other games. It's a great game to just dive into.
It's not the kind of game that would tempt me to get a PS Vita, but I would love to play it on something portable. I'd love it if it came out for, I guess, iPad or iPhone. But it's not the kind of game that would play so great on there.
It would be tough on the iPad. I think that, these are clearly developers who know their way around developing for iPhones and iPads. With Ridiculous Fishing, they just did an amazing job. But I don't know. I don't know how well it would play there. So this was all preamble to part 2 of our board game special. If you joined us last week, we were discussing board games and how to fit them into your life. Because, that's another type of gaming that we're all really passionate about. We still had a little bit to talk about. In this final part of the episode, we'll be talking about Dominion, among other things. Dominion is probably one of my favorite games to play around a table with cards rather than around a computer with game pads. So thanks for joining us again this week, and enjoy the rest of the episode.
just show up at Reagan's house. Just come right around the back. The door's unlocked. Come right on in and set up your game.
I'll put the address in the show notes.
Absolutely. Please do.
Yeah, I mean, we play in St. Louis pretty frequently, so if there's a listener of the show who wants to play with us, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
as long as you don't smell like cheese,
What's wrong with cheese?
or unless you smell really like cheese.
So you mentioned these as a great way to catch, great games and have them recommended to you. But I think, in my opinion, one of the other great resources out there would be BoardGameGeek.com. So,
Oh, absolutely. BoardGameGeek.com is an amazing place to look up games. Once you start getting a sense of what types of games you like, one of the wonderful things about BoardGameGeek.com is that it's essentially the IMDb of board games. And not only do they list games in terms of like user ratings and, oh, this is a good game, oh, this is a bad game, here's some reviews, but they list them in terms of what game mechanics they include. And that's something great, is that once you really start getting into board games and deciding what types of games you like, that will be a resource for you to find other games that use similar but different ideas in them. Games that you know you'll like because they're using mechanics that you find fun.
yeah, I've made almost every one of my board game purchases from BoardGameGeek.com.
That was, in fact, that and in a meetup group was where I discovered my pick for the week, which was Dominion. Now, this is actually a little bit of a stretch because Dominion is technically more of a card game than a board game, but I sort of think that those two fall under the same hobby. Dominion
Yeah, I mean,
is
if
a
we're going to
game-
make that distinction, then Carcassonne is more of a tile game.
Yeah.
I don't think that's worth,
Yeah.
clarifying that hard.
I agree.
False
And,
advertising. I'm out.
You come back here. Dominion is a game that really appealed to me because when I was a kid, I was a really, really big fan of Magic the Gathering. I had a big collection of cards. I spent entirely too much money going down to the local game store and buying Magic the Gathering decks, buying individual cards, and collecting it was kind of fun for me. But playing the game was really fun for me. There's other people for whom it's the other way around, but for me, it was all about playing the game. And Dominion was a really innovative game. It came out in 2008, and it's kind of a CCG, a collectible card game, without that first C. It's a game where you get a box that contains a complete set of cards with a lot of variety in terms of like what cards are available. And it's a complete game that you can sit down with 2 or 3, or I forget exactly what the max number of players is, but I think it's up to 5 maybe players who have no collections of cards themselves and play a game that has the same fun card playing feel of a collectible card game without the cardboard crack expense of an actual collectible card game. So you're not collecting. It's got a flexible number of players, so you don't just have to play it one-on-one like you do with many card games. I know one of the things that really is kind of a problem with Magic the Gathering is it's always one-on-one. There's no 3-player version of that game. Well, with Dominion there is. And it's just a fantastic game for people who kind of look back fondly on that but don't want to dive into an expensive sort of bizarre hobby like collectible card games. When it first came out, it was really, really innovative. It came out in 2008, and it's widely credited as being basically the very first game in a new genre that's now referred to as deck building games. And it's called that because when you first lay out your game, you select about 10 different possible cards to be played in the game, apart from some standard ones that are in every game. And you're picking those randomly out of a selection of about 28 cards that come in the set or more if you've gotten some of the expansions. So in each game, you get a sort of a randomized set of available cards. Each available card, there's many copies of, and each player starts with a deck, but their deck is tiny, and it contains exactly the same as every other player's deck. And as you're playing the game, you're simultaneously buying new cards to add to your own deck so that you can play them later in the game. And that's a big part of the strategy. You're creating a deck as you go. But you're also then playing those cards in order to gain victory points and then also money to buy more cards with. So your deck is a sort of a slowly snowballing collection of cards that you continue to build and build and build as you play the game. And essentially, the player with the best deck wins. But the player who has developed a deck over the course of the game that has the highest value in terms of victory coins, not necessarily in terms of actual like awesome cards you can play. So it's got a really great sort of balance between filling your deck with, you know, victory points and filling your deck with cards that you can use. Not to talk at too much length, because I'll put some links to descriptions of the game in the show notes, but it's a fantastic game that makes it really easy to get that feel from the collectible card game scene in something that doesn't feel like something that you have to devote hundreds of dollars and millions of hours researching some kind of wider meta game.
Yeah,
it's an amazing game.
You kind of showed this game to me, and we've played it a couple times, and I really, really enjoyed it. I also have been a big fan of Magic the Gathering, though I actually came to that very late. I was not a fan of Magic the Gathering as a kid, not out of any choice. I just was not something that I was really introduced to.
Oh man!
But Dominion to me seems like there's a big thing within the Magic the Gathering community called the draft. Basically, everybody buys a pack of one of the random things. They take the best card, hand it to the guy to the right, and they build a deck out of new decks. And it seems to me like whoever created this game realized that a lot of people are having a lot of fun building decks out of thin air and built an entire game out of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's great.
Yeah, and rather than the draft being a sort of a pre-game game that you have to play before you get into the actual game, the draft is the game. You're building your deck as you play the deck. That's what's really clever about it. When you buy new cards, you add them to your discard pile, but you are constantly shuffling your discard pile back into your deck and continuing to play those same cards that you've purchased over and over and over and over again.
The other thing I'll give you that's a good part of Dominion, and I didn't play Magic, I didn't really like it, but I have an embarrassingly large collection of Star Trek The Next Generation collectible card game cards.
It is embarrassing. I was over at his place recently when he was reorganizing them, and let me tell you, it was impressive. He has a very, very large table, and it was pretty well dominated by multiple generations of Star Trek. Very impressive.
I will say, in my own defense, I hadn't done that in 15 years, and it was cathartic, but...
Siba, there is a deck building game that's of the Star Trek The Next Generation.
The thing is, I really enjoyed the first edition. The actual first set of whatever it was, 300 cards that they set out, was an interesting enough game. It was quick enough that you could teach to somebody and immediately sit down and play. The mechanics weren't great, but you could play immediately. They released
Plus, it had Star Trek quotes on the cards.
Star Wars, shame.
But then they released about 10 expansions for it that they didn't plan for it in the beginning, and you could tell that the rules just got out of hand to a point that they just, I think at one point, killed the entire series and said, well, we're going to build a new game. You can't use any of the old ones, at which point I said, I'm out.
And that's the trouble with collectible card games. There's these endlessly changing landscapes. And if you want to play competitively with people who take the game seriously, it becomes practically a full-time job where you're keeping track of what cards are legal to use, what cards are no longer legal, what new strategies have been developed based on new cards coming out that change the game in some fundamental way. Whereas a game like Dominion, if you understand the 28 cards that come in the box, you and everyone else at the table with you is on even footing.
Well, one thing I will say is, first of all, I never had issue, wrangling the rules with people who were interested and willing to play. I was trying to cross that second hurdle. But the thing about the Dominion is, it's not, that some of the collectible card games didn't do well, is there were the cards themselves, and then there were the rules of the game into which the mechanics of the cards applied. Mm-hmm. Now, Dominion, I think, really simplifies that to a point that, with the vague exception of you're trying to buy victory points with gold, all of the mechanics are on those 10 cards. So if you have you can play with somebody whose first time it is there, and they're saying, how do I do this? Oh, wait, I have to buy victory points. They cost this amount of gold. okay, how do I get gold? And
Yeah.
you
You can essentially read the rules of the game right
every
off
turn.
of the cards.
Correct.
It's a fantastic point because it makes the game really easy to pick up. Now, I absolutely love this game, and I will play it at the drop of the hat. And it's an easy game to teach to new people, and it passes the Jamie test because my wife will actually play this game with me one-on-one. That's a great success for a game because she's very picky. She will play games based on cooking, and she will play this, and she will play Small World, and that's,
Samurai.
And Samurai, yes, actually, that's true. So she's a very picky gamer, and this is a game that I've convinced her to play and that we both enjoy playing. And she beats me at it routinely, which is great. But
For those people that you have here that have been playing before, or that have not played before and are thinking about picking up, the one thing I'll throw in to absolutely ruin your gaming night is try just buying money. See how it gets you. For those who have tried that and realize that it's the asshole's way to win, if you're going against somebody that does it, kill them quickly. You can beat big money. It just it surprises people the first time you try it.
Yeah, there's a lot of really interesting strategies to this game. There's certain cards that, if they are available, depending on what other cards are available, are huge successes. I know that when Nate and I played a couple of times, there was one time where, for example, the Witch card was available. The Witch is a card that lets you play curse cards on other players, which let you essentially give them negative victory coins that stick in their deck. And when that was available, there are some cards that will allow you to get rid of those negative cards, and there's other but sometimes those cards to get rid of the negative cards aren't available. So really, your strategy has to shift based on what cards are in play, what cards are available for you and your opponents to pick up. And there's all kinds of different little strategies that draw out of that.
That sort of ties into when I play the game. A lot of times when I'm teaching new people, I start with the recommended learning collection of cards from the rulebook. Mm-hmm. And my biggest problem for the game is that with that version of the rules, there's essentially no interaction between the players at all.
I think that's in some ways kind of good for when you're learning, though, because it doesn't let you feel, hurt when someone stomps on your perfectly crafted strategy.
It also doesn't let an experienced player stomp on you. At the end of the day, that
exactly. So if somebody tries, a kind of a boring but effective strategy like buying nothing but money cards, they'll do all right as long as there's no player on player interaction or ability to kick somebody around who's doing that.
Fratricide, if you will.
Yeah. Now, the other great thing about this game is, like Small World, there's a lot of expansions for it. And this game was really built for expansions because of its kind of roots in the CCG kind of, gameplay. It's super easy to just add new cards to the game that include new game mechanics and new rules right there on the cards. It's very easy
so
to
really,
to
it's
slot
no
those
different
in.
from Magic the Gathering, except that the expansions cost like $40 instead of $1 to pick up a pack of 6 cards, right?
That is true, but there are 6 expansions for this game, and
you end up with an extra 300 cards, not an extra 6.
Yeah, it does feel like a value. You really feel like you're getting new exploration on the game mechanic when you buy one of the new expansions. So I think that's great. One downside of this game is that it is hard to play online, and that's a kind of an interesting story. When I started playing this game, I really, really wanted to play it against my friends on the internet because so many of my friends aren't here in town, and it can be really hard to get people together for a game of this sometimes, even though the games are short and it's easy to teach to new people. So I went immediately and started looking to see, hey, is there an iPad version of this game? Just like there is for Carcassonne and for Ticket to Ride and for some of the other, like Small World, some of the other games we've talked about. And unfortunately, there isn't. It would be a perfect game for online play and specifically for the iPhone or iPad because it just would work so well. And for a while, there actually were unofficial versions of this game. There were a lot of developers that had kind of it's a very popular game. It's very influential. And there were a lot of imitators of this game. But there's also a lot of people who had created apps that were essentially Dominion for iPad, even used that name. And Rio Grande Games, the company that publishes the game, allowed that. They just let that go for a while. And there were actually several really good competing unofficial Dominion apps. At some point, Rio Grande Games sold the rights to a company called GoCo. And that, I think, has turned out to be a real mistake. GoCo had a plan to create an online gaming platform based on making games that ran as HTML5 apps. The idea would be that they would run in a web browser and they would run equally well on an iPad, on an iPhone, on a Mac, on a PC, whatever. But they didn't run very well. They did create a version that runs on a desktop web browser, and it's still up and works if you want to play it, but I don't recommend it. It just isn't well constructed, and the pricing scheme for it isn't very fair, and it doesn't feel right. And so it really felt kind of lame that all these fairly good adaptations got taken down in favor of something that is broken and just simply doesn't work. GoCo even eventually actually put up an iPad version of the game and took it down again within 2 days. The response to it was so bad. It was essentially a wrapper around their webpage. It just did not work well at all. So the interesting part of that, though, is that because this game was so influential, there have been an absolute ton of imitators of this game. And I've been trying to look around and find what I thought was the most accurate, most Dominion-like game that you can play easily over the internet with a good iPhone or iPad app, because that's my preferred way to play board game and card games over the internet. And really interestingly, I came across a game that's made by a company called Playdeck Games. Playdeck has made a lot of really, really good board game to iPad game adaptations. And unfortunately, the version that they chose, or perhaps fortunately, was a game that is essentially a reskin of Dominion. Its game mechanics are identical to Dominion. But instead of being a lord managing a kingdom or whatever, you are the lord of a manor house hiring maids. And the maids are all drawn in anime style in a way that really makes you feel like a creep. The game is called Tanto Cuore. And it is exactly like Dominion. I'll be putting some links in the show notes and hopefully maybe a couple of photos. And I've downloaded it. It's $3. You can play it on the iPad or the iPhone. It is exactly the same rules of Dominion. In fact, many of the game cards are exactly the same rules as Dominion. But instead of, for example, hiring a moneylender, you hire a French maid wearing, thigh-high legging or stockings. And
it's some themes can really sell me on a game. Some themes could really make me not want to play it. And the fact that someone could look over my shoulder and see me buying or selling French maids, I'm out. I'm sorry.
I know. That's the tragedy of this.
Yeah, that's pretty silly.
It's actually an incredibly well done adaptation. I decided to give it a shot recently just out of curiosity because I just love Dominion so much.
You can just turn around and say,
Curiosity.
okay, now you've got a galactic Dominion, and so we're making all the things into aliens.
I really wish that
would
were
be
true.
fine. A little goofy but cool. So
yeah,
odd.
I was kind of sad. That said, if you are willing to, if you can play this game only in your home with no one looking over your shoulder, it's super fun. It's a
How
really,
many games
really
in
well
your
done
closet is that
adaptation
true of Reagan?
Dominion.
I mean, being honest. And I'm not talking about playing only at home. I'm talking about wearing leggings and...
Oh, too many. But yeah, if you want to check out a great reskin of Dominion with creepy art, Tanto Cuore is...
It's really what the game had been missing was creepy art.
Yeah. So, and it actually is an incredibly well done port. It apparently actually was. Dominion came out in 2008. Tanto Cuore came out as an actual card game exclusively in Japan. Big surprise. In 2009. So it is this app is actually an adaptation of that card game rather than just directly ripping off Dominion. But that game ripped off Dominion. It's Dominion. It's Dominion, except that instead of gold, you buy women with love. That's the currency in the game. It's love. Yeah, it's really awkward. Don't play it in front of people. But it's really well done. It has online multiplayer, both live.
So you're really trying to sell me on these maids.
You're right.
Reagan,
no one is ever going to play this game. It's really a shame that they didn't just replace it with, I don't know, horses or something.
I can tell that our strategy of just looking at you until you run out of steam is failing. But
I know, it's awful.
Reagan, did you just say you wish it was ponies instead?
It would be better. It would be better if it was anything except for like anime maids in like.
So
Your
better
little
if you
ponies?
can buy ponies with love.
Sure, why not? It'd be better than Tanto Cuore's theme. That said, if you can get over the
could you
theme,
think of anything that would
it's
be
pretty well done.
worse than Tanto Kumari?
They could be more
I still have a
naked.
photo of Reagan sitting on the couch watching Love Actually, not the video that was popular, but the anime.
Love Actually, the anime.
You remember the one about the guy that lived in the bathhouse?
Oh God, you're thinking of Love Hina.
Love Hina. Thank
God, okay, I'm editing this out because that chapter in my life is closed and never to be reopened.
Oh, I'll put the photos for the show notes.
Oh dear. Well, that was my game pick for the week. Not Tanto Cuore, but instead Dominion. Dominion is a fantastic game. You can pick it up on Amazon for a pretty reasonable amount of money. Or if you prefer, go support your local game store. We'll put some links in the show notes to where you can find this game online. But if you can support your local game store, go in, buy a copy of this game, and talk to the friendly people behind the counter and see if there's a local game meetup group that will help you learn the game and play many other exciting games. They're really a great place to explore this hobby and a great place to meet people. One of the nice things about them, though, is that if you don't want to meet people, it's pretty easy to just sit down and play a board game with someone and not have to get to know them in any detail. When I was in New York, I got to play a lot of board games with people who I still keep in touch with, and I got to play board games with Lou, who smelled bad and had a lazy eye. Not that there's anything weird about that. Lou, hey, if you're out there, you were a cool dude, Lou, because I would never have talked to you, Lou, if there were any, in any
You really took
context
a
in my
180
life.
there. You
But
took a
you know
180
what?
on your description of Lou there. It started out all terrible, then your conscience
playing
got
board
it better.
games with Lou was a lot of fun. He was a weird dude. He had some weird stories about having been homeless, but he was pretty good at losing board games gracefully.
Reagan, your credibility is going like it's buried along with those women that you bought with love.
Oh, jeez. All right. So now that we've all tanked my credibility as a speaker into microphones, does anybody have any final thoughts about board games in general?
Did Siba get a game?
Siba actually sat here and I'm gonna bug Shane and I will tempt him with beer and I will do a round on Memoir 44 for your next round because that's gonna be fun.
Oh, Siba, I remember buying Memoir 44 for you when we were playing a lot of board games together because it was one of those games that I thought this game is going to be too hard for me, but Siba is going to kick ass at it.
For those who are sitting here watching and taking notes and are randomly Googling right now, it's a game that, interestingly enough, was put together by the French government for the I want to say 50th anniversary of D-Day, and it's a hex-based game, but it's not a hex-based game where you need to, like Dominion is for some of the customizable card games. You don't have to sit there at your game shop and ridiculous or lovingly or ridiculously, depending on your point of view, paint miniatures and gather them and then build the board and then put your people on. But it's very much a hex game in a box that is a blast to play. So
yeah, Memoir 44 is a great game if you like two-player. I think, as far as I recall, it was exclusively two-player.
It is.
Games with scenarios, because it gives you a book of scenarios to play out, and each time you play a scenario, one player will take the Axis side and another will take the Allied side, and you play out a perhaps I was getting that wrong. You were giving me a strange look there, Siba.
No. I think you're exactly right. I'm gonna steal the two of you gentlemen, and we'll run a threesome for a hex game podcast one time with Heroscape, Memoir 44, and we'll come up with a third.
Hex-based games may be a whole little subgenre on its own, but Memoir 44, if you want to dive into the more war gamey side, is a great one to play with just two people in a reasonably short amount of time. And one of the nice things about it is that you play out a predefined scenario, and then you trade places, and you play out the same predefined scenario, but each player taking on the opposing side. Really a terrific game, well designed, and it feels like a board game rather than feeling like some kind of complicated Axis and Allies extended, forever thing. It feels contained and really well put together. So yeah, good pick there.
Interesting. I don't think I've ever played a game like that.
It's awesome.
So I was just going to say real quick that, I obviously love video games. I do. But I think that part of me has a lot more fun playing board games with a group of friends in an individual instance.
It can be a really great way to bring people into gaming as a hobby. I have tons of people that I have played board games with who would never even consider picking up a controller. And if you like playing games with other people, board games are so much more approachable for all sorts of people who just don't find video games compelling or interesting to them. It's just a great way to bring people into.
A board gamer.
Mm-hmm. Me?
Yeah. 'Cause I know you're a big board game fan, right?
Absolutely. But it is a relatively recent development. About 4 years ago, Molly, my girlfriend, lived in Portland, and I went to visit her, and she had a friend from work who was having people over to play board games, and we played Carcassonne and we played Power Grid, and that was really the first time that I'd ever played anything that would have been considered a Euro game. I immediately went home and bought Carcassonne, taught it to all my friends. We played Carcassonne virtually every night for like 6 months straight, and then I did
until you got sick
Grid.
of it.
Yeah, well, more like we just got more games. Never really gotten sick of Carcassonne. I'll still play it at any point, but it did kind of culminate. One of the last times we played it was when we tried every single expansion that had existed with 6 people. And it took like 5 hours, and quite honestly, it wasn't even that fun because it just went for so long.
That's a marathon.
I still play it. Yeah, I still play it here and there, but that was really one of the last times in a long run of playing a lot of Carcassonne. But since then, I've expanded my collection and sought out new games, and I enjoy it a lot. And with the living situation that I had, which was a lot of roommates in and out and just a lot of people over here in and out, I had a lot of opportunity to teach these games to a lot of different people. And that's why we were able to have, something like, somewhere at least around 100 games of Settlers. And if you look at that scoreboard I was talking about earlier, there's about 10 different names, all that have multiple wins. So we'd have people over and everybody's just kind of like, do we want to go to a bar? Yeah, we could do that. Or you guys want to play Settlers? Yeah, let's do that. And we'll play a game or two. And
that's
a lot of fun.
And I miss that about those days. And that's really why these games that we were talking about today really appeal to me, is that these are games that you can get some of that, hey, let's just grab the roommates and haul out the copy of Settlers kind of feel, but you don't have to have 6 people and you don't have to have 4 hours. So hopefully we've gotten a chance to really give a little bit of an overview of what's exciting for a newcomer to board games, or hopefully opened up some new avenues for some people. Where can people find these games?
Like you said earlier, there's a game store in every city. Even if you're in a small town, I guarantee there's some sort of fantasy shop. Or Barnes and Noble actually has way better than I expected, even more so than Target. It has, from the Barnes & Noble that I've been to, you could get, they had multiple copies of Small World, Ticket to Ride, Settlers, the Settlers expansions, Carcassonne.
Yeah, a lot of the game shops I've been into have been also independent book or comic shops.
Yeah.
And so that's what led me to the hobby in the first place. My go-to comic shop was also a game store.
Are you talking about Nan's?
I'm talking about Nan's.
Oh,
If you're
man.
out there, Nan's. No one in the shop can tell me why you're called Nan's.
And
That
I've been
place
in Nan's in
holds
too
a
long.
special place in my heart. That was the first place I ever bought a board game, first place I ever bought a comic book, and probably the first place I ever saw a weird middle-aged guy who drives a car covered in Santa Clauses every single day of the year.
That's not Nan's. That's
No, that's Nan's.
Yeah, he
Games and
works
Comics 2.
yeah, it is. Oh,
Yeah, he's behind the counter, man. He's a very opinionated guy when it comes to comic books.
He's like Santa Steve or something.
Yep.
Yeah, he's like a full-time Santa. Really interesting guy.
Yeah.
So, thanks guys for getting together with me. I'm really glad we got a chance to sit down and talk about board games, even though we haven't been able to sit down and play board games together because of our great distance apart. But I'm hoping that through the magic of the internet, the four of us will be able to pick up one of these games and ride again here soon. So thanks again for joining us. We've been The Short Game. Nate, where can people find you?
You can follow me on Twitter at NateSTL. And can I throw out a little plug real quick for
please.
something? This is not something that I'm directly involved in, but a couple friends of mine have a really awesome Let's Play series. It's two of the funniest people that I've ever met.
I have seen a little bit of this, so listen to this.
Yeah.
Man.
It's called Game Plus, and they do it's husband and wife, and they do new games, old games. It's really, really funny, and they have all these like little pop-ups in their videos. It's really funny.
Hey, I'm Chuck.
I'm Megan.
This is Batman Arkham Asylum. This is an old game, but Megan's always wanted to play this, so he said, why don't we play this?
Get out of my way, I want in the elevator. That's my terrible Batman voice.
That was a Batman voice? I thought you were just like a dog or something.
My voice is too high to do an actual Batman voice.
Not where you're I don't know.
Rachel! Do you want another one?
Where is she?
Where is she?
So look on YouTube for Game Plus.
Will do. Shane, where can we find you?
I'm online at 8BitShane on Twitter.
Awesome. And I am, of course, your host, Reagan Kelly, and I am at Reagan K. I spell that kind of funny. It's at RayganK. Siba, do you want anybody net stalking you?
You can find me at my home.
Yes, which is in Houston, Texas.
Please.
And we'll list the address in the show notes.
Please call first.
All right. So thanks particularly to Siba for joining us for this special board game episode. I think this is a lot of fun. I think we'll probably return to other topics like this in the future. But next week, we'll be coming back at you with another video gaming themed episode in our traditional style. I expect that next week we will be talking about Portal, a game that truly changed the short game experience for all of us. And I know it was a hugely influential game in my gaming life. And I know I am really excited to talk about it, and I hope everybody else is too. So,
yeah.
Nate, Shane, I will see you guys here next week to chat about Portal, and good night.
Au revoir.
Anybody know any good jokes?
I know one about a centipede. Have I told that one?
I don't know. Tell it.
So, a guy's walking down the street, and he's on his way to the bar. He sees a homeless guy with a tiny house next to him, like a little doll house, only smaller. And he says to the guy, it's elaborately detailed. He stops to look, and the homeless man holds up a cup and says, hey, mister, do you want to see my singing centipede for $1? And he's like, what? And the guy points to the little house. He says, my singing centipede will sing for you for $1. And he's like, okay. So he gives the guy $1. Out comes a little centipede, and it's like dressed up, and it sings a little operatic aria. And the guy just stands there dumbfounded, just staring at the thing. He says, "That was amazing." And then the homeless guy says, "You like that? Well, for $500, I'll let you take the centipede. You can have him." And the guy says, "Oh, okay." He pulls out the money, he gives it to the guy, he takes the little house with him to the bar, and he sits it down on the bar next to his friends. And the guy says to his friends, "Listen, guys, I'm going to show you the most amazing thing that you will ever see in your life. And if you see what I'm about to show you, and you don't think it's the most amazing thing you've ever seen in your life, I will give you $50. But if it is, you have to give me $100. So the guys are like, "Oh, okay, fine. You don't even have to bet me. I love seeing amazing things. That's a beautiful dollhouse, but I've seen better." So he knocks on the house. He says, "Come on out, centipede." Nothing. Nothing. So he pounds on the roof a little louder. "Centipede, come on out. It's time to sing." "Centipede, you're on." Nothing. And the guys are he's starting to have his doubts, He reaches down and he opens the tiny little door, and he looks inside. He says, "Come on, centipede." And out one of the top windows pops a little centipede head. And he says, "Hold your horses, I'm putting on my shoes."
Oh my god.
my god.
There's so much setup.
That
The
what?